Allahu Akbar. Walaikum salam, Sabiha. Ismail in the house, mashallah. Walaikum salam. Big salam to all the silent watchers as well. I know there's people that are watching that don't necessarily tend to comment or ask any questions, but alhamdulillah, they listen in and they tune in, mashallah, and benefit from the questions that you guys ask and hopefully the answers that I give. Rabs Q, salam from Mesa. Shout out to Macy Gray in the house, mashallah. May the 6th, I think, something like that. So a lot of comments and questions that came beforehand, mashallah. So one of them was like, we took in Surah Ankabut, one of the brothers were asking about whether spiders have any special significance in Islam. And because of the whole sort of, it came down in the cave and so on and so forth, and there's an entire surah that's named after the spider and so on and so forth. So nothing in terms of like the actual creature itself that has significance. So like if you have a spider in your house, you know, there's going to be so much barakat there or anything like that. Nothing like that. But just the significance of, you know, these small sort of insignificant creatures that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created that we think nothing of, right? In fact, we're actually really, very afraid of them because, you know, they've got 8 legs and they run around everywhere and, you know, they really sort of give us a phobia. And we would like nothing but to get a hoover and just suck them up when they come into a house. So things like that is but Allah wants to show us that, you know, even with these insignificant creatures that we ourselves think that, you know, they have no purpose in this world. They're just there, right? 8 legs, grow a web and eat other insects, right? But even they have a purpose whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to utilize them for his affairs. He utilizes them and they are at his command, right? Whenever he wishes. Whereas the mankind, like, you know, we think that we are in control of everything, but in reality we aren't. There are sort of rumors, even in sort of like the books of fiqh, about having a spider in your home, how if you leave the spider in your home for a long time, it causes forgetfulness and so on and so forth, because the spider was there and it caused them to forget to look inside the cave and stuff like that. There's nothing really from the Prophet ﷺ to say any of that. So no. Aussie Aki Imam, he was asking about sort of the importance of physical activities in keeping fit, and the types of food and quantities to consume. So in terms of quantity, I can tell you that straight up, that 1/3 of what your own body can intake, that is the maximum amount of food that you should intake. And that is what the Prophet ﷺ has advised us to do. And that is the max as well, right? So it's not like the max is however much you can eat until the point you're like, oh, subhanallah, food coma, right? Rather, the max is 1/3. And you can tell it's 1/3 when, alhamdulillah, what you've eaten is enough for you, and mashallah, it's really nice, but you still have a want to eat more. Like what you've eaten, alhamdulillah, that you can carry on with, but you still want to eat more. That is the level that you want to get to. That is when you know when to stop eating. But our eyes are bigger than our stomach, so it's really hard to do that. But it's important to keep fit and healthy. Al-aql as-salim fil jism as-salim. I don't think that's a hadith. It's more like a wisdom of the Arabs of old, where they say that a healthy mind is in a healthy body, and that's obviously, you know, that's not a tradition or a saying that is exclusive to the Arabs. Rather, we all know that as well. So that goes without saying, especially now with the lockdown and stuff, and we're not really sort of getting out and about much. It's important to make sure you keep fit and healthy, and remember to do that in Ramadan as well. And don't let fasting be like a hindrance. Like, I can't exercise because I'm fasting, because if I exercise, then I'm going to need to drink, and I can't drink, and then I'll get tired, and so on and so forth. You know, it's not like, you know, you need to do some hour-long strenuous activity where you're, you know, overexerting yourself. Just, you know, maintenance, keep fit and healthy, and that sort of thing. And just watch what you eat as well. So the fried foods, I know, alhamdulillah, the samosas and the pakoras are really nice during iftar, but, you know, every now and again, have some fruit, inshallah. So 27th night tonight, right? Yeah, 27th night tonight. So one of the sisters was asking, I think it's a sister, might be a brother. If it's a brother, I'm sorry. On the 27th of Ramadan, usually we pray farz, and 2 rak'ah. It's called Qada Umri. I like the way you wrote that in Arabic as well, by the way. We think it will cover all our fard prayer, which we missed during the year. Is that true? So this is a misconception, right, about how the Laylatul Qadr is going to fall on the 27th night and only the 27th night. It's the reason why everyone has that misconception is there's a narration, I think it's recorded in Bukhari, on Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu, where he said that the 27th night is going to be the night of Laylatul Qadr, right? But that could mean that that particular year that our Ibn Mas'ud had said that was the year where Laylatul Qadr was seen to have been the 27th night. That doesn't mean that it's going to be every year, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that it's going to be in the odd nights. And even he sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was sort of going to tell the Sahaba, and he found them arguing, and so whatever he was going to tell them was not told to them in the end, so they didn't know when Laylatul Qadr was going to fall, and so on and so forth. So it's left hidden for us, and it's hidden in the odd nights. So no, it's not 100% true that the person who just does it on the 27th night, that's when that's when he should do all of his fard, and he does the qada umri on that particular night, and that equals for all of his missed prayers in his entire life. No, that isn't true as far as I'm aware. I haven't come across anything like that at all. Ismail is saying, what, I have to train during Ramadan? So if anybody doesn't know, Ismail is a personal trainer, and he's probably taking Ramadan off. But now that advice has come out, he's probably thinking he's got to get back to work now. MashaAllah. Don't know. And again, like, so another thing about sort of these Q&A sessions, right? While they're really good and really entertaining, mashallah, you have to remember that they're very abstract. So you guys might be asking me things, and there's no context to the question or the scenario that is being asked with regards to, and to give an answer that's going to be blanket for sort of everybody to follow is very, very difficult. And more often than not, there's a little bit more detail to the answers than what I give. But what I give generally tends to suffice for the question that's being asked. So yeah, don't get trigger happy with some of the answers that I give and say, oh, this is it. Imam Hamid said, so I'm going to do it. Inshallah. Okay. And no tafsir of my answers, guys. Right? What I say is what I say. What I haven't said is what I haven't said. Inshallah. Okay, so we'll get back to some of the other questions, inshallah, a little bit later. Let's get started with our synopsis, inshallah ta'ala. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأصلي وأسلم على من بعث رحمة للعالمين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Brothers and sisters, and welcome to part number 26 of our Quranic synopsis, where we are going through the Quran juz by juz, and we have reached juz number 26, where we will cover now a lot more surahs than we have been covering before. So inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq for what we are about to encounter, inshallah ta'ala, and grant us the ability to benefit from everything that is being said and take it forward, inshallah, in our lives, in practice, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Ameen, ameen. Okay, so we hadn't finished a couple of surahs from the previous part, which was namely Dukhan and Jathiyah. So let's go over those very, very briefly, inshallah ta'ala. So Dukhan, otherwise known as the haze, right? Dukhan, smoke or haze. Now, it's called ad-Dukhan because of an ayah that refers to a haze that took place in the time of, in the Meccan period, at the time of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam giving da'wah to the mushrikun of Quraysh. And the story behind it is that there was a haze that took place, and it was a drought, that took place, and the haze was a result of the barren land being so dusty and dirty and nothing growing on it, and there's no irrigation to it, there's no water to it to make it hard, so that it becomes dust and it just blows with the wind. And as it blows with the wind, it blows up into the air, and it it produces a haze in the horizon. On top of that, the sheer hunger that was caused as a result of the drought, because they didn't have any crops and the animals couldn't feed, so a lot of livestock died as well, and water and shortages and so on and so forth. All of these things added up to the point where their hunger took them to a stage where they couldn't see properly, and there was a haze in their own vision. So that was what this particular instance was referring to. In the beginning, there is actually allusions to Laylatul Qadr as well. So Hamim wal kitab al mubin inna anzalnahu fi laylatin mubarakah inna kunna mundhirin. We have revealed this Quran in a blessed night, and we all know what that night is. That is the night of ليلة القدر فيها يفرق كل أمر حكيم. That is the night in which sort of every affair is going to be decided, right? Every affair is going to be judged. So that is why that night is so powerful. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that on that night when we are going to be judged, that He judges us in a state of obedience to Him, in a state of worship, and in a state of remembrance, inshaAllah ta'ala. بل هم في شك يلعبون فارتقب يوم تأتي السماء بدخان مبين. So ayah number 10 is where the story of the dukhan, where the haze is mentioned. يغشى الناس هذا عذاب أليم ربنا اكشف عنا العذاب إنا مؤمنون. So when this happened, when this sort of drought happened, they went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they asked him, Ya Rasulullah, or Messenger of Allah, you sort of claim to be a messenger, you claim to sort of have connection with Allah, so make dua to Allah that He alleviates us of our plight that we're going through. So raise your hands to Him and make dua that Allah sends us down some rain. So أَنَّا لَهُمُ الذِّكْرَى وَقَدْ جَاءَهُمْ رَسُولٌ مُبِينٌ. So how is it that they are supposed to, how can they return, how can they remember, how can they turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when there is a messenger from amongst them that they reject? ثم تولوا عنه وقالوا معلم مجنون إن كاشف العذاب قليلا إنكم عائدون. Right? So a messenger has been sent, they turn away from him and they say, this guy has been taught by somebody else. He's being told to say all of these things from somebody else, right? The asatir al-awwaleen. Or he's just crazy. He's talking gibberish. These are the things that they say to the Prophet ﷺ. At the same time, they're asking him to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to alleviate them of their punishment. Make adhan, right? That Allah, hears our calls. Inna kashiful adhabi qalila. So when we take away that punishment a little bit, when we send down some rain, the drought stops just for a little bit, they return straight away to what they used to do before. Then the story of وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا قَبْلَهُمْ قَوْمَ فِرْعَوْنَ وَجَاءَهُمْ رَسُولٌ مُبِينٌ رَسُولٌ كَرِيمٌ. That the story of Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun is mentioned very, very briefly. And the reason why this comes up in this particular surah is because it's talking about a haze, right? It's talking about a drought, talking about a calamity, right? And it is a calamity that even the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send it down to the kuffar of Quraysh, just like they had sent it down at the time of Yusuf, right? سَبْعٌ مِثْلَ سَبْعِ Yusuf. That's what the Prophet ﷺ said. Send down 7 like the 7 of Yusuf, meaning the 7 years of drought that happened at the time of Yusuf alayhi salam. And this is to show that, look, the same thing happened to the people of Fir'aun, that they were overcome with drought. And the same thing is happening to you now that you are overcome with drought, or they were overcome with plague, should I say, right? So they went to Musa alayhi salam and they asked him, Musa, make dua to your Lord so that He can alleviate us of our plight. And just like that, you guys are coming to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asking him to alleviate you guys of your plight. But just like Fir'aun, as soon as that plight is alleviated, you guys are going to turn back on your heels and do exactly what you did before. And it was so that Fir'aun turned back on his heels and he ended up trying to kill Musa and his people. Just like that, the pagans of Mecca turned back on their heels and they tried to kill the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his people later on, right? So it's the same thing. You guys don't learn from history. History just repeats itself, just in a slightly different way. Learn from it. Take heed from it. Okay, let's have a look. What else is coming up in the surah? إِنَّ هَؤُلَاءِ لَيَقُولُونَ إِنْ هِيَ إِلَّا مَوْتَتُنَا الْأُولَى وَمَا نَحْنُ بِمُنْشَرِينَ. So there's allusions now to like atheistic beliefs about how it's just this life, right? This worldly life, this is all that we're going to live in, and there's nothing after death. You're born and then you die, and nothing kills you except the time that you live here, right? You just deteriorate over time. And sort of it's mentioned in Surah Jathiyah as well, which is going to come up inshallah. So we'll talk a little bit more about it when we get to that particular verse inshallah. But there's allusions to it here as well, because this is very much a pagan belief as well, where it's just this life. We have gods that we worship, and it's just the way that we found our forefathers doing it. This is just the way we do it. There's no answer to it. And this is how we live our lives. And there's no life after death. There's no messenger. There's no God. There's no system that He's supposed to have sent down that we're supposed to live by. There's no way of life other than the way of life that we know and that we have taken from our parents and they have taken from their parents, so on and so forth. And then sort of from the verse 40, إِنَّ يَوْمَ الْفَصْلِ مِيقَاتُهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ يَوْمَ لَا يُغْنِي مَوْلًا عَنْ مَوْلًا شَيْئًا وَلَا هُمْ يُنصَرُونَ. So this is about sort of a contrast between the believers and the disbelievers in the hereafter. It starts off with the disbelievers and how they are going to be punished, and the severe punishment, and the descriptions in this particular sort of part of the surah. They're really, really strong. So have a sort of take some time out to read them and go through them. They really do stand out. And it's sort of descriptions of the people of Jahannam and also descriptions of the people of Jannah as well, and a contrast between the two. So really, really interesting. And then at the end of it is advice to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فَإِنَّمَا يَسَّرْنَاهُ بِلِسَانِكَ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. We have made it easy for you to remember because it is in your own tongue, right? It is in the Arabic language. فَارْتَقِبْ إِنَّهُمْ مُرْتَقِبُونَ. Verily, wait, for they too are waiting. And then we go to Surah Jathiyah. Surah Jathiyah, it makes the case for Tawheed and the hereafter through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's signs and His blessings that He has sent down to us. And that's sort of the beginning part of this surah, all the way to, I think, the ayah number 20. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So there's a lot of allusions to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation and His signs, and how even after all of those signs have been sent down to them, even after all of those blessings have been given to them, they still turn on their way, turn on their heels, and turn away from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and what has been sent to him. Yet, despite that, despite them turning away, they still believe that they should be treated as equals with those who have believed. This alludes to, so one of the questions that was asked, I think it was AA. He asked a question about like whether, is there any hope for those who have been like, destined for Jahannam, like, in the fire? Are they ever going to sort of be alleviated of their punishment or something like that? And sort of these ayat that talk about sort of the equality between those who believe and don't believe, it's sort of like showing us that, look, it's never going to be the case that evil is going to equate goodness, and goodness is ever going to equate evil. And because that sort of that equality cannot be discerned in this life, we can't really tell who's being good sincerely, except that there are signs that they are being so, and who's being wholly evil, from the bottom of his heart, right? Who is like, intends evil, and who just sort of is giving good the lip service, and who is sort of, who meant good, but evil came out in the end. All these things, right, are happening in this world. It's really difficult to differentiate for ourselves, but in the hereafter, that will be differentiated for us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So alhamdulillah, it's not for us to judge, it's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to judge, and He is the best of judges, and He judges with justice, and He doesn't oppress anybody in the smallest, tiniest bit. And this is very much from our own compassion, the compassion of Iman that it gives you in your heart, right? That when you read the ayat about punishment, and about how they're going to Jahannam and stuff, there's something that moves in your heart that, subhanAllah, man, this is like, is this fair? Should they really be like, succumb to such an end? Is there no hope for them? Can we not change their destiny for them? Can we not call them to Islam so they can at least be like, have some sort of salvation from, this is like a small taste of what the Prophet ﷺ felt with regards to his people and the entire mankind, because he was sent to all of mankind. He wasn't just sent to the Arabs, right? So this is exactly how he felt as well, and probably felt it on a much bigger scale. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay. أفرأيت من اتخذ إلهه هواه. وخلق الله السماوات والأرض بالحق ولتجزى كل نفس بما كسبت وهم لا يظلمون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this world with a purpose. أفرأيت من اتخذ إلهه هواه. But there are some who don't believe in that purpose, who obviously they have turned their backs on the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't believe in anything but this concept of evolution, and evolution is what brought everything about. And this world is just a cycle of things that are sort of progressing as time goes on, and mankind himself is evolving. Do you not see, the buildings around you? Do you not see the civilization and how it has, progressed from living in mud huts to now, high-rise buildings? Do you not see the internet around you and Wi-Fi in Jannah and so on and so forth? But anyway, sort of the world is progressing, and it's just this idea of evolution. So when you have that as your ideal, when you have that as your idea, And then all that remains for you is to take yourself as a God besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You decide what is right for you, you decide what is wrong for you. You decide where the boundaries of halal and haram are drawn. You decide what is moral and immoral. Even if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from above the seven heavens sends down a revelation to one of his messengers and tells you that this is what is considered as immoral, and you turn around and say, you know what, I don't agree with that, then that is fine. Right? That is what your own convictions have led you to, right? That is basically what's happened. And so you have taken your own self as gods besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And someone asked me like a long time ago, a couple of weeks ago, about whether there are any examples of shirk in our modern day. And it is the shirk of the nafs, taking your own self as a god besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is probably the shirk of the day. So this ayah addresses that. فَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Have you not seen the one who takes his own desires as a god besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If he wishes and if he wills to do something, that is what is considered as good. And if he wishes not to do something and he disagrees with something, then that is something that is considered as haram. وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَىٰ عِلْمٍ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has misguided him with knowledge. Now this could either mean that knowledge has come to him in terms of revelation, right? So he knows that there is something called the Bible. There is something called the Torah, or there's something called the Qur'an, and within it is revelation from Allah, or so it is assumed. And within it are what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do, and where the lines of halal and haram are drawn, and the ideas of the concepts of tawheed and shirk and so on and so forth are all laid out in detail, manifest detail within these revelations. So either he knows this, they know this, yet despite that they turn away from it and they think that it's all, you know, a bunch of fables that have been revealed to a man in the desert, and that all of that, you know, doesn't make sense and it's not true, and it's only sort of concocted because the believers or those who believe, they are afraid of there being nothing, you know, after they die. So they want there to be something, so they, you know, imagine something that there's going to be, you know, life after death and so on and so forth, and all these other things that they claim against us. But really the reality of that is that so it's either that they're misguided on that particular knowledge, or that they themselves know that what they are doing is not right. Right? It's right by them, but by everybody else, it's not conducive to a functioning society. Right? You can do that on your own, and you can do that when everybody else is sort of ignoring you and perhaps not, you know, doing it with you. But you know, if you look around the world, right, it's not a way to last. Right? We are not animals where we only look out for our own interests, right? And the hell with everybody else, right? And if everybody is to be wiped out, if a nation is to be wiped out elsewhere, that doesn't matter, right? We don't care. If an army is sent unjustly to usurp another country, it doesn't matter to us because it's not happening in our own backyards, right? This is the kind of mentality that is ensued from أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. So, and this is just a small snippet, by the way, guys, of what this mentality and what this ideology can bring into fruition, and the disparity that it can cause, and the destruction that it can cause, and the corruption that it can cause across the world. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس. Corruption has been spread in the land and the sea as a result of what mankind has sown with his own hands. وختم على سمعه وقلبه وجعل على بصره غشاوة فمن يهديه من بعد الله. And if you were to even approach these guys and to talk to them about sort of revelation, about the haqq, about batil, about, look, guys, you know, what you're doing is not right, and you know, they can't even comprehend what you're saying, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put a seal upon their hearing, He's put a seal upon their hearts, and He's covered their eyes with a ghishawa, with a covering. فَمَنْ يَهْدِيهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ اللَّهِ. So who is there to guide them if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't guided them? أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Do they not remember? وَقَالُوا مَا هِيَ إِلَّا حَيَاتُنَا الدُّنْيَا. And they say that it's just this worldly life. حَيَاتُنَا الدُّنْيَا. Right? And by the way, dunya, right? حَيَاتُنَا الدُّنْيَا. There's a difference between dunya in terms of what we mean by the word dunya, and other things that we may have misconceived as being from the dunya. So, for example, like the trees, the skies, the birds, the beasts, the seas, and all that stuff that we consider as signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we don't call that dunya, right? That is not the dunya. Ourselves are the way that we're the very genetic makeup that we're created from, our souls and so on and so forth, even though those are all created things and they are all part of this world, that's not called dunya, right? Rather, these are called hawalim or alim, right? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Alameen are these worlds that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. They are all signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The dunya are those constructs that we perceive as meaningful and give us value in this world, right? So status, pride, wealth, power, all of these things are considered dunya, right? And these are hindrances between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alam, the very word alam, which is associated and connoted with these things that are considered as signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are taken from the same root word as ilm, as knowledge and understanding is taken from. Whereas dunya is taken from the same word as dana'a, as something that is disgraced, as something that is low, and something that is worthless. So these sort of imaginary concepts of power, status, authority, all these things, these are all things that you know they exist in our minds. They're not outside. They're not tangible. No one can see the power that you have, right? That is something that you yourself think that you have. No one can see, like, you know, the authority. You're just a human being, right? Who eats food and defecates it out of him. That's your reality, right? There's no power and authority in you, but it's a misconceived notion that you have just because you have the ability to command others and tell others what to do, and people somehow fear that because of their own imaginary constructs that they put in their own mind. That is the dunya, right? So they say, وَقَالُوا مَا هِيَ إِلَّا حَيَاتُنَا الدُّنْيَا. It is only our life in the dunya, these powers, these constructs that we made up in our own lives, in our own minds, right? So these things of governance and stuff like that, these gods that we've set up besides Allah, these ways of living and ways of working and the ways of interacting with each other, this is the dunya that's all there is. It's just this. So we have to work hard at this, and we have to be at the top of the ladder, because if we're not at the top, then somebody else is at the top, and if someone else is at the top, they're going to have authority over us and they're going to push us down, and so on and so forth. Again, the insecurities of the mind taking a hold. Namutu wa nahya, we die and we live, right? And notice how they what's it called? They say we die first before we live. وَمَا يُهْلِكُنَا إِلَّا الدَّهْرَ, and nothing destroys us except time. It is only time. We live a short period of time, we die. وَمَا لَهُمْ بِذَلِكَ مِنْ عِلْمٍ إِنْهُمْ إِلَّا يَظُنُّونَ. They have absolutely no certainty of that whatsoever. They have no proof that this is the truth that they are supposed to be standing up, standing, or they're supposed to be living their lives by, and keeping that upright by, and keeping the rest of society upright by. Right? No proof whatsoever, no leg to stand on. Inhum illa yadhunnun, they have nothing but doubt. Right? And this is what it is in reality. Right? If you take away revelation, if you take away iman, you're just left with doubt. It could be. It is just the way everyone else is doing it, so let's do it. There is no certainty in anything that you do. Right? And it's just an illusion. It's just the dunya. It's just constructs that you've made, or other people have made and caused you to believe that this is the way that you should do it. Right? So you are forever subservient to them. You're not subservient to Allah, but you're subservient to them. And that produces dhulm, that produces tyranny, that produces oppression from people one over the other. وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُنَا بَيِّنَاتٍ مَا كَانَ حُجَّتُهُمْ إِلَّا أَنْ قَالُوا ائْتُوا بِآبَائِنَا إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. And the arguments against revelation is like, a manifold, and come with our forefathers if you are truthful. Meaning that we don't know that it's actually happened. How do we know that there was a man called Muhammad in the middle of a desert? How do we know that Musa alayhi salam was revealed to him what was revealed to him? These are just stories, isn't it, from the past, right? And stories are important, right, to uphold character in society and to teach and so on and so forth others and whatnot. But they're just fables, they're just stories, and they didn't actually happen. Isa alayhi salam didn't actually give life to the dead. That's just inconceivable. It didn't happen. Of course it didn't happen, right? So it becomes that, right? ائتوا بآبائنا إن كنتم صادقين. Come with these people and let them, how do we know? Where's the proof? And so on and so forth. Anyway, I've spent a lot of time on this surah. So that is a lot of what Jathiyah is about. So really rebutting these particular arguments. And it goes on. Next is Ahqaf. Ahqaf is called the Sand Hills, and it's so called because Hud, the Prophet Hud alayhi salam, warned his people in this very location. وَاذْكُرْ أَخَا عَادٍ إِذْ أَنذَرَ قَوْمَهُ بِالْأَحْقَافِ. Right, so it takes the name of the surah is inspired from that particular story. Okay, so at the beginning part of this this surah, from verses 1 to 12, it talks about the absurdity of shirk and rejecting the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even though people from Bani Israel had come to the Prophet ﷺ and recognized sort of his truthfulness in his message, and recognized the fact that previous messengers had come with the same message that he had come with, so they believed in him. If this was not a big enough proof for the truth of the Messenger ﷺ, then there is absolutely nothing to convince the mushrikun of Quraysh that the Prophet ﷺ is a prophet and to believe in him. So they are going to be obstinate upon their disbelief and upon their opposition of the Messenger ﷺ. And if they raise arms against him, they will want to kill him, not because he is the messenger, but because they are jealous and they are envious the fact that the message came to him and not to them. وقال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا لو كان خيرا ما سبقونا إليه. Right? So the people who disbelieved, they would say that they would say to the people who have believed that if this was something that was good, that was revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ما سبقونا إليه, he and his believers would not have preceded us in reaching or attaining and acquiring this revelation. وإذ لم يهتدوا به فسيقولون هذا إفك قديم. And if they were the ones who were not guided to it first, they would say regarding this revelation that it is just fairy tales and it is an old lie that has been invented from back in the day. Right? But if it was revealed to them personally, then they would truly believe in it, right? So it's a pride thing, it's an arrogance thing, it's like, me and not you kind of argument, right? So that's kind of the origin of their disbelief in the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, the next part of this particular surah, from ayah number 13 to ayah number 20, is quite sort of it's quite out there, it's quite individual, because it talks about believers and disbelievers with regards to their parents, right? Very strange in terms of like its content material, but similar still to some of the previous ayat that we've come across. وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ إِحْسَانًا, right? So we know that ayah has come before in Surah Al-Quran, that we have sort of advised and encouraged and ordained for mankind to be dutiful to his parents. حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ كُرْهًا وَوَضَعَتْهُ كُرْهًا. There's been a lot of difficulty in sort of giving birth to him and raising him, and وَحَمْلُهُ فِصَالُهُ 30 شهرا, 30 months go by, where 9 months of those 30 are conceiving him and in labor, and then sort of the rest of the months are spent in his sort of weaning and breastfeeding and looking after him and changing him and her and so on and so forth, right? So a long and arduous task of bringing this person up, right? حتى إذا بلغ أشده وبلغ 40 سنة, until he reaches the age of maturity, and he reaches 40 years of age, which was the year in which the Prophet ﷺ, the age in which the Prophet ﷺ received prophethood, right? And it was said that no prophet received prophethood or officially became a prophet until he reached the age of 40. That's what it said. But obviously we have other accounts where revelation was given to certain prophets when they were just a baby in their cradle. Does that mean that they were prophets? But there's a theological debate and discussion that goes on within the realm of Islamic theology there. Anyway, so when he reaches this age, قال ربي أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي. Allow me, he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, allow me, oh my Lord, allow me to be appreciative and show gratitude for the blessings of which you had showed me, التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي, and the blessings in which you have given my family, or so that I can show gratitude to my family, my parents, should I say, وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه, and that I may do good actions that you are pleased with, وأصلح لي في ذريتي, and sort of rectify my affairs with regards to my children and my lineage and my progeny that comes after. إني تبت إليك وإني من المسلمين. Verily I have repented to you, and verily I am from those who have submitted to Allah. أولئك الذين نتقبل عنهم أحسن ما عملوا. These are the people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has accepted, right, as being his righteous servants. The next is a contrast to that, the disbeliever. والذي قال لوالديه أف لكما. Right, so we know the word uff. We've had that before. I think it was in Surah Al-Isra, right? ولا تقل لهما أف ولا تنهرهما وقل لهما قولا كريما. So don't say uff. So the person, the child, والذي قال لوالديه أف لكما. So whoever says this word uff, and we said that the word uff means like any form of disrespect to your parents. Your parents tell you to do something and you're like, oh, fine, and then you go and do it, right? That is, utter and disrespect, and that falls into the category of uff. And uff is the very lowest form of the spectrum. So it includes those things like, rolling the eyes, breathing heavily, right? To the very end of the spectrum, which is, hitting your parents or, raising your voice against them. So the person who has this characteristic, who does this, أُفٍّ لَكُمَا أَتَعِدَانِنِي أَنْ أُخْرَجَ وَقَدْ خَلَتِ الْقُرُونُ مِنْ قَبْلِي. Are you telling me that I'm going to be raised after death, right? And basically this conversation is happening between parents and their child, right, and their children. So the parents are telling, look, there's going to be life after death, be wary, be good, do good actions, don't commit sins, don't transgress, don't be tyrannical, and don't oppress others, don't harm others, rather be a good and upstanding citizen. So why should I be an upstanding citizen? Because you're going to be raised on the day of Qiyamah and you're going to be held account to everything that you're going to do. So the child is turning around to their parents because they want to follow their desires and they want to do whatever they want to do, and they don't want to listen and they don't want to take counsel, and they want to be in charge and masters of their own destiny and so on and so forth. So they say, why are you telling me that there's going to be a life after death? And why are you telling me that I'm going to be held accountable for everything that I do? And there is no accountability. I can do whatever I want to do, right? وَهُمَا يَسْتَغِيثَانِ اللَّهِ. And they are calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making dua for this child. Man. Ya Allah, guide him. Ya Allah, save him. Ya Allah, change it, cause him to change his way. وَيْلَكَ آمِن. What's wrong with you? Believe in Allah, right? So it's kufr. What he's doing is kufr. إِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ فَيَقُولُ مَا هَذَا إِلَّا أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. Allahu Akbar. Right? So they say, وَيْلَكَ آمِن إِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ. What's wrong with you? Believe. Verily the truth, the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the truth. It's going to happen. There's a purpose to your life. You have to fulfill that purpose. Be whatever you want to be. Be an architect, be an engineer, follow your career, do whatever you dream of, but make sure you uphold your responsibility towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? That's all their advice is to their children. And that's what our advice should be to our children as well. We should nurture them, bring them up, direct them in life. If they have some form of interest, they want to be an astronaut, by all means, bismillah, you can pray salah on the moon. It's all good, right? I don't know what direction you'll face in terms of qibla. Fiqh question, don't ask me that in the comments, guys. But, be whatever you want to be. And I will, inshallah, support you. But also, coupled with that is your responsibility towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the halal and haram, how you conduct your affairs with yourself in private, how you conduct yourselves with other people as well, the discipline that you garner through your salah and through your siyam and through your sadaqah and all these things. Make sure you do those things, right? Make sure those are part and parcel of your life. Make sure those are integral and they are the fulcrum in which your whole astronaut life revolves around and orbits around. SubhanAllah, look at that. Anyway, فَيَقُولُ مَا هَذَا إِلَّا أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. And his reply to them is, these are just fairy stories from old man. You guys are just telling me things. أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ حَقَّ عَلَيْهِمُ الْقَوْلُ فِي أُمَمٍ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا خَاسِرِينَ. These are the people that have every right to be punished in the akhirah. Right? In short, these are the people who are going to be punished in the akhirah. Right? And subhanAllah, it's interesting to see the correlation between disbelief and iman with dutifulness and the lack thereof with regards to the parents. SubhanAllah. Amazing, man. The parents can either make you or break you. Ajib. What an amazing responsibility that is. And then from the verse number 21 to 28, there is the story of the destruction of the people of Ad, which obviously is the whole Ahqaf thing upon sand hills. This is so the story is brought forth because of a reminder that, look, you guys, a messenger was sent to the people before you, and Hud was a messenger from the Arabs as well. He was an Arab messenger, and if he was rejected by his people and his people were subjected to a punishment, then what do you think your end result is going to be? And then toward the end of the surah, it accounts the story of the jinn, and this is a story where the jinn they had just recently been sort of shot out from the sky. So what used to happen back in the day is that the jinn, they used to go up to the sort of the heavens above, and they used to try to eavesdrop on revelation and try to eavesdrop on the commands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would pass on to the malaika, and the malaika would then pass on to one another and so on and so forth. There's a massive network of things going on up there, right? There's a whole corporation of malaika. So they would try sort of like an eavesdrop, what's going on, what are the latest orders and stuff like that. So then they will come down to the dunya, and then the sort of the magicians and the soothsayers and so on and so forth, these kind of guys who are in touch with the jinn, they will get information from the jinn with regards to what's going to happen and what's not going to happen and so on and so forth. Like really like old back in the day type fables, right? But that's what used to happen. When the Prophet ﷺ was destined to come and when he was sent as a messenger, the heavens suddenly shut. And the jinn could no longer go and yastariqun as-sam'. They could no longer like steal these, they could no longer eavesdrop on the angels, and they could no longer eavesdrop on revelation. They didn't know what's happening, and they recognized that, you know, something grave is going on. Allah has never done this before in the millennia. I don't know how many millennia that they were around for, but you know, for forever. He's never done this before, and now this is happening. So something strange is going on. And so they decided to scour the earth in order to find out where this revelation is coming to. They know that there was revelation coming down, otherwise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would never have had shut the skies to them. But now that it's shut, they went out looking for the revelation. And they found, after the Prophet ﷺ went to Ta'if, towards the end of his time in Mecca, he went to Ta'if, right? And he went to call them to Islam, and they had pelted him with stones until his very sort of sandals were filled with blood, and the blood had dried up, and his sandals were getting stuck to his foot as he was walking, right? So he stopped off in a location somewhere between Ta'if and Mecca, and he began to pray. Some say it was the Fajr prayer, some say it was the Tahajjud prayer, whatever the prayer it was, he was praying and he was reciting Qur'an. And so this group of jinn that was scouring the earth looking for this revelation finally found the Prophet ﷺ. So they وَإِذْ صَرَفْنَا إِلَيْكَ نَفَرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقُرْآنَ فَلَمَّا حَضَرُوهُ قَالُوا أَنصِتُوا. So when they found the Messenger ﷺ standing in prayer, they all stopped and they're like, shh, listen, listen, listen. He's saying something. What is he saying? فَلَمَّا قُضِيَ وَلَّوْا إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِمْ مُنذِرِينَ. And when the Prophet ﷺ had finished his recitation, they went back to their people and they warned them that, you know, this is a new revelation has come. قَالُوا يَا قَوْمَنَا إِنَّا سَمِعْنَا كِتَابًا أُنزِلَ مِن بَعْدِ مُوسَى. We have heard of a revelation that has come to mankind, and that was revealed after what was revealed to Musa. So it is assumed that they were upon the religion of the Yahud. Anyway, so that is a cool, really cool story that is accounted here. And it is said that the Prophet ﷺ was unaware that the jinn were even there, and he was just there and he was just reciting and he was praying, and then, you know, he finished, and you know, they went on their way. And this is sort of reassurance to the Prophet ﷺ that, look, you know, despite all the things that are happening, there are things going on in the world that these guys don't know. No, even you don't have no knowledge of whatsoever, right? And they're happening on epic proportions. So don't think that, you know, you're insignificant. Don't think that your cause and what you're doing is unknown. Don't think that, you know, the whole thing about, you know, وَخَشِيَ الرَّحْمَنَ بِالْغَيْبِ, the mu'min آل فِرْعَوْن, you know, all of these things, the believer from those people who had been sent 3 messengers to their people, right? All these things are happening behind closed doors. All of these things are happening where you can't see them. So don't lose hope, and don't think that, you know, there's no point in doing what we're doing. There's no point in because no one's hearing our call, and we're forever getting oppressed, and we're forever on the receiving end. You know, don't let that dishearten you, because there are things going on in this world that are way above anybody's sort of reckoning and anybody's understanding. And to the end, to that effect, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the last ayah, advice to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, فَاصْبِرْ كَمَا صَبَرَ أُولُو الْعَزْمِ مِنَ الرُّسُلِ وَلَا تَسْتَعْجِلْ لَهُمْ. That be patient, just as the messengers who had resolve had patience. Okay, there's the كَمَا صَبَرَ أُولُو الْعَزْمِ مِنَ الرُّسُلِ. So there are a group of messengers who are called the ulul azm, the messengers of resolve, right? And they were so called because either they went through the most hardship, or because they are the most that are mentioned in the Qur'an, or, you know, various reasons. There are 5 messengers. The Prophet ﷺ is amongst them. Who are the other 4? A little bit of trivia for you guys. Yeah, 4 messengers. Who are they? So verse number 35, and Imam is asking, like, make sure I say the ayah number when I skip. I do my best to do that, inshallah. So ayah number 35. فَاصْبِرْ كَمَا صَبَرَ أُولُو الْعَزْمِ مِنَ الرُّسُلِ وَلَا تَسْتَعْجِلْ لَهُمْ. And don't be hasty for their punishment is coming. You know, the reckoning is coming, the change is coming. Either they're going to come into Islam and you don't know yet. Just be patient, inshallah. كَأَنَّهُمْ يَوْمَ يَرَوْنَهَا مَا يُوعَدُونَ لَمْ يَلْبَثُوا إِلَّا سَاعَةً مِنْ نَهَارٍ بَلَاغٌ فَهَلْ يُهْلَكُ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. That, you know, the day of reckoning, when it does come, you know, this dunya is going to be like a fleeting moment, right? That they're going to think that they had only spent their entire life of this dunya just an hour, right? And that is relative, right? And that is real for even us ourselves. We're here in the 26th day of Ramadan, and, you know, it feels like doesn't feel like 26 days, it feels like 2 minutes, man. فَهَلْ يُهْلَكُ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. Only those who have transgressed and wronged themselves, they are the only ones that are going to get punished. Let's do Surah Muhammad, and then we'll take a break, inshallah. Surah Muhammad is obviously the praised one, which is the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we've said countless number of times how many times the Messenger ﷺ was mentioned in the Qur'an, and it is in fact 4. And the Prophet ﷺ in this surah is mentioned in the second ayah, I think. Yeah. So this surah was revealed just after the hijrah of the Messenger ﷺ from Mecca to Medina. And it's basically like a surah that prepares them for battle. So there's going to be a lot of ayat in this surah that alludes to fighting in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But no fighting has yet come about. There haven't been any battles. There haven't been any sort of like any skirmishes or anything like that. It's very much a preparatory surah. There are a lot of sort of descriptions of Jannah in terms of the reward of what the people are going to get for fighting in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such as verse number 15. مثل الجنة التي وعد المتقون فيها أنهار من ماء غير آسٍ. So there are like loads of different rivers in Jannah, right? That the believer is going to have the blessing of, or the favor of, drinking from them. From them are sort of pure water, right? Which has absolutely no other mineral or no other mixture of anything else in it, just pure, pure water. Others are from milk, and milk that never goes Hamid, that never sort of like that goes off its smell. Sort of, if you leave milk in, it goes, beyond its sell by date. You smell it and it's like, it's not good, right? That smell never comes to the milk in terms of the rivers in Jannah. There's going to be rivers of honey. There's going to be rivers of alcohol as well, of khamr. But this alcohol is not going to cause the person who drinks it to become drunk, right? To lose his senses and to vomit and to have a hangover tomorrow morning, right? And all that jazz. So these are sort of examples of the rewards that are waiting for the believers. Obviously, there's going to be stern warnings. Whenever there's battle, whenever there's fighting mentioned, there's always mention of the hypocrites, because fighting and spending in the way of Allah are two things that always separate a believer from a hypocrite, right? Because in fighting in the way of Allah, you have to basically put your life on the line. And in spending in the way of Allah, you have to give up what you covet and love the most. And those are two things that are the hardest for a munafiq who professes Islam but really hides in himself disbelief to actually come out and do. So there's going to be a lot of allusions to the hypocrites. So for example, in verse number 20, وَيَقُولُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَوْلَا نُزِلَتْ سُورَةٌ, right? So the people who believed, those who had iman in their hearts, they wanted an ayah to be revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the permission to fight, right? Because they were being wronged, they were being oppressed, and it got to a point where they even got kicked out of Mecca, right? And the Prophet ﷺ's life was at stake, and he had to leave as well by the command of Allah. So they're like, now they're waiting for a command of Allah now to actually defend themselves. Okay, now we've been kicked out, we've been harassed, all of our property has been taken, we've been literally disgraced by these pagans, and all of that just because we said amanna. So is there now going to be a decree from you, Ya Allah, that's going to allow us now to defend ourselves, or are we going to migrate to this place and then they're going to follow us here and they're going to attack us here as well? What's going to happen? So finally, فَإِذَا أُنزِلَتْ سُورَةٌ مُحْكَمَةٌ وَذُكِرَ فِيهَا الْقِتَالِ رَأَيْتَ الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٌ يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَيْكَ نَظَرَ الْمَغْشِيِّ عَلَيْهِ مِنَ الْمَوْتِ فَأَوْلَى لَهُمْ طَاعَةٌ وَقَوْلٌ مَعْرُوفٌ. So so when that verse was revealed for them to defend themselves, obviously, the believers then rejoice because they now have the authority. Now they have permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're not wronging themselves, and they're not wronging others when they're defending themselves now. But those who have a disease in their hearts, right? Remember the 3 categories that we took in Baqarah, right? Allah characterized the hypocrites as having disease in their hearts. There is a sort of another mention of that here. That those who have disease in their hearts, يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَيْكَ نَظَرَ الْمَغْشِيِّ عَلَيْهِ مِنَ الْمَوْتِ. They look at you as if death is coming to them, as if you've told them, kill yourselves. SubhanAllah. And they should have, obeyed Allah and His Messenger, and so on and so forth. So a lot of sort of ayat with regards to them, they've been described as having locks upon their hearts. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. And these are locks that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put on their hearts as a result of their hypocrisy, and it has resulted in them being unable to contemplate the verses of the Qur'an. So be very wary, my brother and my sister, that if you are having trouble contemplating the Qur'an, if you always find a block between yourself and the Qur'an, Be aware that there may be an element of hypocrisy that has taken over your heart that you need to alleviate yourself from. For verily, those people who have been blocked from contemplating this Qur'an and connecting with it are those who have either disbelieved and turned away from it entirely, or those who have hypocrisy in their hearts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that. أفلا يتدبرون القرآن أم على قلوب أقفالها نسأل الله السلامة منها يا رب العالمين. And then towards the end, sort of believers are encouraged to spend, follow Allah's messenger. يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول ولا تبطلوا أعمالكم. So obey Allah and obey His messenger, follow him in his guidance, and do not render your actions null and void by turning on your heels and running away from the commands of the messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. ها أنتم هؤلاء تدعون لتنفقوا في سبيل الله فمنكم من يبخل ومن يبخل فإنما يبخل عن نفسه. That you're being asked to spend in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that whoever is miserly and whoever is stingy with regards to spending in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is only being stingy on his own self. Right? Because we know that sadaqat, they are multiplied by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that when you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have not lost out in the slightest. But if you withhold from the wealth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided you, because of, for reasons other than imanic reasons, right, then, you are only sort of, you yourself are the only ones that are losing out there. So that is a brief sort of overview of Surah Muhammad in very, very sort of brief terms. Let's take a breather, inshallah ta'ala, and let's see what's happening in the comments and questions section, inshallah. So we'll start with the tubers. Can we inject a non-Muslim blood in our body at emergency situation? Yeah, you can. And can we donate our blood to them? Yes, you can. When it says like إنما المشركون نجس, when it says that the mushrikun are impure, it doesn't mean that they are physically impure. It just means that the ideology that they have, this idolatrous way of understanding the world, that's what is impure, and impurity begets impurity. So you can donate your blood, and you can have their blood donated to you. What I have to train. If a husband beat his wife, then in return, can she beat him, or should go for khula? Astaghfirullah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and forgive all of those who have transgressed in their marriages. So yeah, beating is absolutely haram, clear cut. Revert to, I think it was our fifth Quranic synopsis session. So revert back to that for some more information on that. But that's haram. Evil doesn't sort of allow evil. So just because someone has beaten you doesn't mean you go and beat them. So no, that's not sort of like a carte blanche. Just because you've raised your hand at me, I'm going to knock you out as well. Not at all, no. Should she go for khula? Not necessarily. If there is an ability to sort of reconcile between them and to have him, rectify his ways and mend his ways, then absolutely, But if there's no sort of reconciliation or no possibility of reconciliation between them, then yeah, khula might be the way to go. But very abstract scenario. Don't quote me on that, guys. Maryam is saying Nuh, Musa, Ibrahim, Isa, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nice. So that's the Ulul Azm. Ulul Azm were 5. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Nuh, Ibrahim, Musa, and Isa alayhimus salam. Those were the Ulul Azm. There are so many families that force their son, daughter to marry someone of their own choice, e.g. a cousin from back home. Allahul Musta'an. Is this haram? If so, what is the punishment for the people involved? Okay, so this is quite a sensitive topic, and one that I think warrants a little bit more time to discuss. I wouldn't go so far as saying that it is haram to arrange marriages, but it is. If there is clear cut sort of like a disinterest in wanting to marry them, and there is clear cut incompatibility between the two, then you are pretty much putting them two in a fitna that they can't avoid, and the person who's instigating it and pushing it, they're going to have to bear the responsibility. So there's a fine line between forcing though and encouraging and wanting and pushing. So many will see that the encouragement of the family to marry a person of their choice is forcing. And you have to remember that the Prophet ﷺ, despite Zainab not wanting to marry Zayd, he encouraged her to marry Zayd. And she said, look, if it wasn't for you telling me, I wouldn't marry Zayd and I wouldn't want to marry Zayd. But it's only because you're telling me to marry Zayd, then I'm going to marry Zayd. So, there is that element in there as well. So there is a very fine line between the two. And I think, in sort of in modern times, that line tends to be quite blurry, and we cross it sometimes when we don't know, and sometimes we don't cross it and we claim to have crossed it as well. So definitely not an answer to your question, and I think it warrants a little bit more detail, inshallah, perhaps in another time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam. What's your thoughts on additional prayers on the night of power? Wicked. As in good. Very good. Many Eastern countries do. Is this right? Yeah. So on the odd nights, on the last 10 nights, increase in your ibadah, increase in your qira'at al-Qur'an, and different types of ibadah. It doesn't necessarily have to be standing in prayer, whilst that is, the most advised one to do. But it could mean, reciting the Qur'an. It could mean making dua. It could mean doing dhikr. It could be doing all of these different things, inshallah. Is there any additional rewards we can do for Laylatul Qadr? All of those things mentioned, inshallah. All right, let's go on to Zoom and see what's happening there. C. Please, could you do a series on akhlaq after Ramadan, inshallah? We'll try our best, inshallah, to do what we can after Ramadan as well. If a person has ongoing mental issues and they think about carrying out haram, but they know they will never carry it out, will they have any punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, gain a sin from this? It's unclear what type of mental issues you're talking about there. And they're thinking about carrying out the haram. It's unclear whether that is they're actually making intention, or are they just picturing in their head what would it look like if they actually did something like this. But they know they will never carry out. That doesn't sound like intention to me, so I don't think that falls into the realms of accountability. Allahu a'lam. What should one do if they feel they are getting distant from Allah and feel no spiritual connection during salah? Yeah, so this is an issue, man. When you get like this, you have to remember that the iman goes up and down. So there will be times in your life where you don't feel a connect, even when you want to connect. And there are times in your life when you are just buzzing on another level and you just feel so spiritual. So when you are buzzing, you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you try to make the most of your time then. And when you are experiencing that low point, be patient. Try to do as much dhikr as you possibly can. Try to be steadfast, right? Because it may be that shaitan is, or your own nafs is going to whisper to you that allow this man, just do something else, or don't pray, and it's not worth praying right now, or whatever. But do the counter of that. So carry on with your prayers and be steadfast in that, and be steadfast in your adhkar, and try to do a little bit more, and maybe a change of scenery, go somewhere else, take a little bit of a holiday and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a different place. Sometimes our routines can get a little bit monotonous. So we're coming to Finchley Masjid every day. Go to another masjid, right? Go to the Barnet Islamic Center, inshallah, that will open up soon, inshallah, right? So go to another masjid, attend salah there, change the scenery a little bit, inshallah. Hopefully that helps in getting reconnected in your salah. Wa alaikum salam. At what point in the Prophet ﷺ's life was he taught how to pray? And for example, how many sunnah, fard, rak'ah, in fajr, etc. This was in the night of Isra and Mi'raj, in the 12th year of the Hijrah. What the Prophet ﷺ did before that, though, interesting enough, was that he still prayed, and he would pray 2 units. Very similar to how salah is performed even now in terms of the fajr prayer, in terms of our nawafil. Right? So when you pray your nafil prayer, tarawih or whatever, you recite Qur'an, you do ruku', you do sujood, and so on and so forth. There was slight variance in terms of the action, but it was very, very similar. So subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ had ilham. And it was said that was even a revelation to Allah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the Prophet as well. So that was the time that it took place. Can you pray witr after Fajr adhan if you missed it? Yes, you can. 1 rak'ah, then rest 10 minutes, then Fajr sunnah, then Fard salah. Yeah, I don't know what the rest 10 minutes is about there. Was that 1 rak'ah of witr really long? Moeen is back. Bismillah. Jazakallah khair, barakallah feek, jazakallah khair for the du'as. Any tafsir that is recommended is Tafhim al-Qur'an by Sayyid Mawdudi, good to read. Sayyid, yeah, that's really good actually. I know he gets a lot of slack for his sort of political stances that he takes sometimes, and it's a very much sort of like well, it's very much like that actually, sort of a political lens to the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the decisions that he took when it came to, like, the migration to Habasha, when it came to the decision he took to, give da'wah openly after the 3rd year of prophethood, the decisions that he took when he first came into Medina, and so on and so forth, and the decisions that he took in battle, they all have sort of like a diplomatic type political undertone to it. So he gets a lot of slack for that, but it's still, mashallah, like a really, really beneficial a book that he's compiled, mashallah. So yeah, obviously that doesn't mean that you agree 100% with everything that is said. Sometimes I see, like, some of the ulama from before, right, and even some of my teachers as well, if they agree with a certain scholar, it's suddenly, or they praise a book, for example, of a certain scholar, suddenly they labeled that they are part of that scholar's like way of thinking, and they follow him and they follow his ideology and stuff like that. We need to get out of that sort of identity politics in our deen, and sort of grow up and be a little bit more mature with regards to these sorts of things. A person, al-haq is you're supposed to follow the truth wherever it comes from, even if it comes from the mouth of Satan himself, which is what Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu did. Right? The story about, Shaitan, he comes and he takes from the zakat al-mal, or the bayt al-mal, and he teaches him ayat al-kursi. Subhanallah. Shaitan teaches Abu Hurairah ayat al-kursi. And then Abu Hurairah goes to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells him, yeah, sadaqa wa huwa kadhub. He has told the truth even though he is an inherent liar. So anyway, yeah, it's a good book, in short. You stated a few days ago that people would recall memories of their children, parents in Jannah. What about spouses? What if one has no spouse in this life? Hur al-Ain are waiting, inshallah, no problem. And yeah, spouses, yeah, you remember your spouse. Your spouse will be your spouse in Jannah as well. There's a funny story about how, like, two people didn't really get along. They were married to each other, and they were like, they asked the sheikh, like, Sheikhana, I don't want to be this guy's sword. I don't want to be married to this guy in Jannah. I've had enough in this life. So he said to her that, look, your spouse is not going to have any of the deficiencies that they had in this world. If they don't have a spouse, then they're not going to have. It's not going to be this world's spouse that's going to be their spouse in Jannah. It's going to be somebody else, inshallah. How to deal with philosophical trick questions? Easy. Can Allah create stone so big he can't lift it? But this is benign. What's the purpose of that, man? It's just like safsta'iyun, man. Like, it's just empty arguments. The arguments for this arguing with you for the sake of arguing with you, right? Qul salam. Say something that's beneficial to them. Remind them of the akhirah. And any sort of conversation that doesn't really beget action is not worth having with anybody, to be fair. One bro asked regarding Jannah if best delicious food. Yeah, the best and the most delicious food is served there. Yeah, Ziyad Kabit al-Hut. Yusuf is excited, man. I can't wait to eat the liver of the whale. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. So Yusuf is telling us a story of when we first get into Jannah, and we will all be invited to eat of the same platter of the liver of a whale. So yeah, the best food, the best menu that could ever be served. No, it's an invitation from Allah. Yusuf, mashallah, nafahat from Yusuf right here. Jinn are usually referred to in the past tense. Do they still coexist with us? Yes, they do, on earth. And do they ever interact or interfere with humans? Yes, they do. Fantastic talks, by the way, mashallah. So yes, to all of those previous questions. They are referred to the past because that's the interaction that we had with the Prophet ﷺ with them. Every other interaction from them after that is neither here nor there. Can you give to restaurants that serve pork since you shouldn't? Or can you go to restaurants that serve pork since you shouldn't if they serve alcohol? Not necessarily, because they're not sort of, you're not eating the pork and it's not being served on your thingy and on your table or on your platter or anything like but it could bring into question how they're cooking their food. But alcohol is sort of impermissible. The impermissibility of alcohol is sort of extends from consumption to actual sort of like pouring and hoarding and storing, and all of these things are, you know, cursed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. Rather pork is just considered haram to consume. Not necessarily like if there's a pig there, it's like, oh, it's haram to go anywhere where that place is. Allahu alam. But you know, there's so many alternatives, guys. Like there's halal restaurants everywhere, man. Like, why are you gonna go to anywhere that doesn't serve? And that's just desires of our own nafs. We want to go to this restaurant, we want to go to that restaurant, we want to, you know, sample this food, we want to sample that food, even though alcohol is served and haram food is served and all these other things are going on. We don't care, right? So it's just like, you know, alahiyatan qulubuhum. Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum salam. I've heard that you should force yourself to cry, especially during qiyam al-layl when making dua for forgiveness. Your thoughts on this? Yeah, try and cry. And if you can't cry, then, you know, try and bring it out yourself. Because verily the one who doesn't cry when making dua has a hard heart. And the one who has a hard heart is not affected by the Qur'an. And you have to ask yourself, why are you not crying, man? Why is this Qur'an not moving you, man? You know what I mean? Can you make du'as such as Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anna? Any other du'as you can recommend during sujood? Yeah, that's a good dua to make during sujood. Anything that's coined with maghfirah. The Fortress of the Muslim has loads of du'as with regards to that, inshallah. So have a look at that and try and memorize. And this is a wicked time to memorize du'as as well, right? Laylatul Qadr is coming in the last 10 nights. Memorize as many du'as as possible and recite them, inshallah. Sabi, I'm not going to answer your question. Do we get to pick the ideal spouse? Well, in Jannah, you mean? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you're going to pick it. But whatever's given to you, you're not going to have any qualms with whatsoever, my friend. Okay, let's get back to our synopsis, inshallah. I know there's some things going on in the chat section, the comments. So answers to the question. Yes, Ashraf has got it right. C has also half got it right. He's missed out. No, you got it right, actually. Yeah. All right, mashallah. Mamu Mamiji has got it right. Gulid, he's there on point, mashallah, as expected. Hassan, I think marriage is an institution, not just having a halal way to have relationship to fulfill one's physical needs. Absolutely, yeah. That's why there's lots of rights that are included between sort of between the husband and wife. We are living in a society where marriage is not seen as a blessing but a need. True, very good analysis there. We all need education about it on a recurring basis. I get your hint, inshallah. A course will be written up soon for you guys, inshallah. All right, so let's get back to our synopsis, inshallah, and we'll try and cover the next couple of surahs in brief, inshallah. So, Surah Al-Fath. Surah Al-Fath is basically a surah with regards to the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. The Treaty of Hudaybiyah, a little bit of backdrop and a little bit of a story about it. So the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, it was written up in the 6th year after the Hijrah of the Holy Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where the Prophet sallallahu, after the Battle of the Trench, after the Battle of Ahzab that we took the other day, right, where all the Confederates and all of the forces of the Arabs had united against Islam to try and eradicate it and wipe it off the face of the earth, and they failed and they weren't successful in doing so. After which the Prophet ﷺ has seen in a dream that he was going to make Hajj, and he saw himself putting on the ihram and slaughtering the sheep and so on and so forth and all sorts, right? And so the following year, in the 6th year of the Hijrah, the Prophet ﷺ, he got his companions together and they began and they set out to on their way towards Mecca for Umrah. And whilst they were on their way, they'd taken no provisions with them in terms of fighting equipment, right? So they didn't take any swords, shields, armors, or anything like that. All they had was, they used to call it, what do they used to call it? Suyuf al-Safar, I think they used to call it, the traveling weapons, the weaponry of travel. And the weaponry of travel is like a small little knife that you use for like hunting and cutting things and stuff like that. That's all. That's all they had with them. So they went. So the kuffar of Quraysh, they heard that the Muslims were making their way to Mecca. So they sent out assassins to kill them, right? And there was a number of assassins that were sent out in order to kill them before they had gotten to the miqat, before they had gotten anywhere near the sanctuary of Mecca, where if you pass that point, you are no longer able to be harmed. And if you are harmed, then not just the Muslims are going to have a problem with that, but the rest of the Arab tribes are going to have a problem with that, because the pagan Arabs, the Quraysh, the tribe of Quraysh, they were seen as custodians of the holy city, and they were there as protectors of those who wanted to perform the pilgrimage. And it wasn't just the Muslims that wanted to perform the pilgrimage, but a lot of others, other pagan tribes that wanted to perform the pilgrimage and worship their gods. The pilgrimage was set out by Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? And as the years went by, that pilgrimage had been distorted and perverted with the polytheistic ideology that they had in Mecca and the surrounding areas. And so a lot of idols were worshipped in the Kaaba at the time. So they would make pilgrimage, but they will make pilgrimage to worship their idols and not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here we have the believers wanting to enact and carry out that pilgrimage to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And here we have the custodians of Mecca stopping them in their tracks and trying to kill them before they get to this sanctuary. So the Prophet catches wind that, these assassins are coming to kill them. So he asks his companions, look, do we go and meet them in battle and kill them? Or do we continue on our way towards the Masjid al-Haram, and whoever tries to stop us, then we will try to overcome them. So Abu Bakr is like, Allah wa Rasuluhu a'lam, Allah and His Messenger, they know best as to what course of action is the best to take. But verily we came out for the Hajj. So we will go towards the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we will not change our track in order to fight anybody else, because they had the option of preempting the battle where this group of assassins was coming to get them. But they chose not to, and they continued on their way to Mecca. And so they finally reached they passed the point where, of no return. They passed the point where they weren't able to be harmed by the mushrikun of Quraysh. And they stopped in a place called Hudaybiyah, which is like an area of flat land just past sort of a rocky ridge. And they set up camp there, and they were met by a man called Budayl. And Budayl was from the tribe of Khuza'a. And Khuza'a, they weren't exactly Muslim, but they had really good dealings with the Muslims. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, look, we've come to do Umrah, we've come to do the Hajj, and that's all we've come for. We have no weapons, we haven't come to fight, but here are Quraysh, and they are stopping us from fulfilling this. So Budayl went to the kuffar of Quraysh and said, look, this is the message that they've sent to me, sort it out, what are you going to do? And so there was back and forth between the Quraysh and the Prophet ﷺ. The Quraysh would send emissaries to the Prophet ﷺ in order to sort of make deals. They turn back, and they're not going to come out, and you're not allowed to come into Mecca, and all these other things that were going on. And one of them was Mikras ibn Hafs. And this guy Mikras, he really he valued and sanctified the pilgrimage. And so when the Prophet ﷺ, he saw him coming, he said that this man Mikras, he likes, he loves and he sanctifies the Hajj. So show him that we have come only for the Hajj by putting the sheep and the goats and the camels that had been brought for slaughter at the very forefront of our caravan, right? And when he sees this, he'll recognize that we've only come for Hajj. And when he came and he saw this, he's like, these people, they've only come to do the Hajj, they shouldn't be stopped. So he went back, and these sorts of conversations were ensuing between the Prophet ﷺ and the kuffar of Quraysh. Anyway, time went by, and the Prophet ﷺ sent Uthman ibn Affan. He originally wanted to send Umar radiallahu anhu, but Umar said that there's no one from Bani Adi, which was the tribe of Umar radiallahu anhu. There's no one from Bani Adi in Mecca that's going to help me if the kuffar of Quraysh decide to attack me when I go to them. Send Uthman, because he still has his family living there, and if he is attacked, obviously no one's going to touch him because his family are going to come to his aid, right? So Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he went to Mecca to reinforce the message of the Prophet ﷺ that they've only come for Umrah and Hajj and they haven't come to fight, so let them in, and so on and so forth. So Uthman went there and he stayed a little bit of time there because the mushrikun, they were sort of debating amongst themselves as to what their reply to the Prophet ﷺ should be. And whilst Uthman radiallahu anhu took his time there, a rumor sort of started to spread in the Muslim camp that Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu had been killed. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, that's it. who is going to take the bay'ah with me, that they are not going to turn their heels, and we will go and sort out Quraysh once and for all, right? And so everybody, apart from a handful of people, went and gave the oath of allegiance to the Prophet ﷺ that they will support him in this cause. And the Prophet ﷺ, for Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu, he did this with his hands. And he goes, وَهَذَا لِعُثْمَانَ, right? This is for Uthman. So everybody, they shook hands with the Prophet ﷺ, and they took his oath. They took their oaths with him that they will not turn their backs, and they took this under a tree. And that is alluded to with لَقَدْ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ يُبَايِعُونَكَ تَحْتَ الشَّجَرَةِ فَعَلِمَ مَا فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ فَأَنزَلَ السَّكِينَةَ عَلَيْهِمْ وَأَثَابَهُمْ فَتْحًا قَرِيبًا, in verse number 18. Now this, let's go on with the story. And then after that, the Quraysh, when they realized that, oh no, the rumor has spread and Uthman is, they sent Uthman straight away back. And then they sent, just after Uthman, Suhail ibn Amr to negotiate with the Prophet ﷺ a peace treaty. And that was the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. In this peace treaty, it was said that the Muslims weren't to do Hajj this year, but they were to come next year and do the Hajj, no problems. And they weren't to bring any weapons with them except the weapons that they brought with them this time. They were not allowed to they were not allowed to engage in battle with the polytheists, with the Mushrikun of Quraysh, and the Mushrikun of Quraysh were not allowed to engage in battle with the Muslims for a period of 10 years. If anybody came into Islam from Mecca and wanted to migrate from Medina to Medina, the Prophet ﷺ has to send them back. But if anybody wishes to return to Mecca, then the Meccans don't have to send anybody back. So the Prophet ﷺ agreed to all of these things. Now, whilst he was agreeing to all of these things, it was said in the treaty, this is an agreement between Suhail ibn Amr and or the Meccans or the Quraysh and Muhammad Rasulullah. The Muhammad, the messenger of Allah. So Suhail was like, you're not the messenger of Allah. If we recognize you as the messenger of Allah, we wouldn't have stopped you from coming to the sacred house. So delete this. So Ali radiallahu anhu, he was a scribe, he deleted it. And then the treaty started with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. He said, Suhail said that we don't know this ar-Rahman. Who is this ar-Rahman? Delete this. So Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu also deleted that. And then it was agreed, and they turned back. So the Muslims then turned back. And now the trip between Mecca and Medina, it's not like a day and night journey, right? So it takes a long time. When this thing happened, everybody was really vexed. Everybody was really anxious. Everybody was angry that this took place. That look, we were supposed to do Hajj, and we were supposed to do Umrah, and we were stopped in our paths, and they had absolutely no right to stop us. Who are they to stop us from the house of Allah? They're just supposed to be custodians, and they're not even good custodians either, because they're allowing shirk to take place, right? What is going on here? And so Umar radiallahu anhu, he was the most distraught of them all, right? And even Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was distraught. And when Abu Bakr is distraught, like things are really bad, right? And so the entire Muslim camp is really sad, and they're on their way back. And the Prophet and Umar radiallahu anhu goes to the Prophet and goes, Alasna ala al-haq wa hum ala al-batil. Are we not upon the truth and they are upon falsehood, right? Our dead are in Jannah and their dead are in the fire. And all of the time when he's saying these things to the Prophet, he's like, yes, bala, of course, yes, absolutely. So it's like, so then why are we being disgraced for our deen? Why are we allowing that to happen? Why are we turning back? And you promised us that we were going to do Hajj. This is Umar radiallahu anhu saying to the Prophet, you promised us that we were going to do Hajj, right? The Prophet turns to him and says, did I say that we were going to do Hajj this year, Umar? And he's like, no, but, and he's like, don't worry, we will make Hajj in the future. And so Umar radiallahu anhu, he's not satisfied. So he goes to Abu Bakr and he says exactly the same thing to Abu Bakr. Like, lasna ala al-haq wa hum ala al-batil, right? أقتلنا في الجنة وقتلهم في النار. The same things that he said to the Prophet ﷺ. And Abu Bakr said exactly the same thing that the Prophet ﷺ said to him, except that he added that, look, be careful, Umar. فَلْزَمْ غَزْرَكَ. That, be wary of what you're about to say. This is the Prophet ﷺ you're talking about, and he is upon the truth. So, be obedient to him and follow him. And then this surah was revealed, saying that it was a triumph. It was a victory. We always associate the victory of the Muslims with the conquest of Mecca. That is the fath, right? And fath means to open or to conquer, right? Or to be victorious and triumphant over something. So we associate that with the conquest of Mecca. But this is not what this surah was revealed with regards to. And this is not the fath that, or the triumph that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is alluding to. Rather, the triumph is this peace treaty with the Meccans. Subhanallah, that is the true triumph. You may not think that that is a conquest. You may not think that that is overcoming something, but truly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set things in motion that cannot be undone, and they are the cause of your true success. When this surah was revealed, Umar radiallahu anhu regretted so much that he went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said all of those things, that even after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had passed away, he said, to this day, and he's the Khalifa at the time, to this day I am still giving sadaqah and still doing istighfar for what I said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on that day. Subhanallah. That is what Surah Fath is all about. I don't have time to go into all of the ayat, inshallah, so have a look at that in a little bit more detail and in your own time. When the Prophet ﷺ was returning from this incident that happened, what time is iftar, Sidious? 56. Okay, we have only a few minutes to go. Let me try and finish this, inshallah. When he was returning, they camped. They stopped for and camped in a certain location. And the Prophet ﷺ, he came out to his companions and told them all to shave their heads and to slaughter the sacrificial animal, right? And that's what you do when you complete the rites of Hajj and Umrah. And so he told all of his companions to do this, and none of the companions did it. And he told them 3 times, and everyone's just looking at him and not listening to him. The first time in the history of the Messenger, in the life of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he has told his companions, and all of them unanimously have done absolutely nothing. Subhanallah. And what a sort of grave sort of position that is to be in. Then in Salama, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who he took with him, he took her with him, on this journey. She said to him, look, do, and they will follow you. So he shaved his head, and he slaughtered his sacrificial animal, and everyone who saw him do this, they slowly but surely they started to do it themselves, and they were sort of so sad when they did it as well, so sad. Anyway, if that was the first time they disobeyed the Prophet ﷺ, Surah Hujurat is all about etiquettes and honoring the Prophet ﷺ. Ajib, that contrast in it. And also in Surah Fath is another time in which the name of the Messenger ﷺ is mentioned. The last ayah, in Surah 20, in ayah number 29, Muhammadun Rasulullah. So Hujurat is all about the etiquettes that we're supposed to have with the Messenger ﷺ. At the beginning, لا تقدموا بين يدي الله ورسوله. Don't put yourselves as priority in front of Allah and His Messenger. لا ترفعوا أصواتكم فوق صوت النبي. Do not raise your voices above the voice of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Etiquettes, how to honor the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and thus be honored in your own self. That's the first part. So verse number 1 to verse number 5. Verse number 6 to verse number 13, that's all about the etiquettes that we're supposed to have with one another. So if we are in a situation where we are fighting one another, when we are raising our swords and our weapons against one another, or whether we are just merely arguing with each other, how do we resolve that conflict? And that in order to remind us, in order to help us resolve that conflict, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. The verily believers are brothers one to another. Subhanallah, right? We appeal to each other out of the brotherhood, the collective brotherhood that we have. And that brotherhood is only there because of the position of the Prophet ﷺ. So honor the Messenger at the beginning of the surah, and honor each other because of your mutual connection with the Messenger ﷺ. And in the end of the surah is all about action, how true honor is found in your iman, and not just paying it lip service. قالت الأعراب آمنا قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا ولما يدخل الإيمان في قلوبكم. Right, so a bunch of Bedouins, they tried to sort of show favor or show their Islam as a favor. Our Islam is a favor to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the kind of idea that they had. But the rebuttal of that was that Iman is what truly counts, not paying lip service to it, not just saying that you believe, rather there is a call to action and you showing that through your actions. And that summarizes Surah Hujurat in those 3 sort of categories. Inshallah ta'ala. I think that's a pretty good summary, mashallah, in the last minutes that were given. There are quite a few comments and questions that have come up since we stopped, but inshallah, hopefully I can cover them at another time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all that we have done. It is time for the adhan. So inshallah, I look forward to seeing you guys all tomorrow, and spare a moment for dua now, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khaira. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة